Well, it's Saturday afternoon. We just got back from Tractor Supply, getting a little bit of corn and some minerals. Going to put some stuff out for Christy. Christy ain't never killed a buck before, and this is...
It's ready. I'm ready.
Might be her year. She's going to try anyway. November the 15th. November 15th, 16th, 14th, right in there. So we're going to make this long drive back here to the back. Shoot him right there. Right there. That's where he's going to be standing. Think you can hit it from here? Make them have to look for it. They won't eat it quite as fast as like. You don't kill them because you missed.
Well, let's hope that don't happen.
Do what?
Let's hope that don't happen.
I think you got it. Good morning, y'all. It is Monday morning. As Mark Chestnut says, it is all over now, and it sure is Monday. Time to start all over again. So I've got 4 capes that are thawed out. I've got to flesh them out today and get them salted, get them ready to pickle. We did make plans to go to Missouri, so hopefully shortly I will be in Missouri. Going to hunt for about a week and just see what we can see. I don't know if we'll end up doing any good, but hopefully I'll get some cool footage, and we can show y'all some of that. But for now, let's get back to this pack mount. The cape is dried out now. I've broken the leather. It's soft and pliable enough to where I can roll it up. I'm going to put some rope around it so it'll hold that shape, and we can just get it hung up. I usually hang them up here so they're out of the way. Once the heads are dry, they're getting there. They've still got probably a few more days at least to dry them. And we'll go ahead and get some frames built and go ahead and mount that stuff up on frames. And then the last thing to do will be to make the bags for them. And I'll kind of walk y'all through that step too. But I'm going to get my fleshing board set up, and I'm going to start fleshing deer heads. We're going to see how today goes. Well, it is 6 p.m., and we have survived the day. So we got our capes salted up, fleshed. I've got the pickle. I went ahead and tested the pH in it today. I think I've got 7, hides in the pickle right now. And tomorrow we're going to come and we're going to do a little bit of epoxy work. I may try and go get some leather. I've still got to finish up that shoulder mount. Needs leather for the back of it. And I haven't been able to get a hold of any leather. They've been out of it. So I may try to do that in the morning and need to finish this deer, get him painted. So that'll be tomorrow's job rather than getting into some more capes just yet. I'm just going to clean up some stuff, take a day to step back and finish up some unfinished business. And then we'll come back and do the rest of that batch of capes the following day, whatever was it, Wednesday. But anyway, I'm going to go up to the house to get me a shower, get me some food. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Hey, what's going on, guys? Tuesday afternoon. This morning, I went ahead and painted this guy. I was going to do it like last week, but I just got busy and trying to get some hides pickling so I could be working on stuff while that was getting done. Look how beautiful this deer turned out. I mean, he is just awesome looking. A little light on him there. Awesome looking cape. Real pretty red head on him and all. Beautiful, beautiful deer. Congratulations to him on early season bow buck. The capes I did yesterday, I've got those in here rehydrating. And all I do, I mentioned this on some other videos, but when I roll them up in that salt, like y'all have seen them sitting over here, I'll just throw them down these tubs and fill them up with water. Just leave the salt on them, And that way you don't have to add any salt to the water or anything. And I leave them sitting in here usually about an hour or so. But you can see they're starting to get just like they were just about when they were raw. So once they get like that, I'll wring them out. And then we'll wash them, get them real clean. And then we're going to go to the pickle with those. I've also got 3 pack heads over here that I've got to deal with. I'm going to actually groom these out. One is already dry and needs to be finished. The other 2 haven't quite dried enough yet, but let me show you all this on these necks before I forget about it. Right here on the bottom of these necks, if you don't, you can card these where they stay flat, but you're going to want this skin to dry straight and you're going to want it to dry flat. So when I had them hanging, you can see how they're kind of off to the side, but they're still not completely dry. You can see they're still a little damp, a little pliable, but they're starting to get that skin right there. Well, y'all watch. Like when you pull on this, so that just breaks that leather. This right here is still damp. It ain't gonna break yet. It'll stretch, but just right around the edges, you can see where that right there is hard, and you can start to break the edges of that. See there? But you want to make sure that as this dries, you want to make sure that you keep this over in the center like that. Make sure that this stays flat. When it dries, you want it to be just like that. That way that cape will lay in front and it'll lay flat right up against that pack frame or however you decide to mount it. Also had to go to Hobby Lobby this morning and get a big roll of the brown leather to go back in that pack mount. I did end up doing that. Ended up finishing him and getting him hung up. Big old tall pretty deer. He's actually been in here about a week or so at least. I should have had him finished already, but they've been out of leather and I like to buy it in person because the last couple times I've been, they had some, but it was so dark it almost looked black. And then sometimes they get some in that's way too thick. It's just basically leather scraps, but it's cheap. It's only $23 for a big, huge roll of it. And it'll last a while. I just want to make sure it's the right stuff that I normally use, or at least something really close, just so if people got multiple deer, they'll match. Something else also, I ordered me one of the tethered 5 XL platforms, the new ones they just come out with, and it did show up today. So I'm going to make a video on it probably here just shortly. And probably do it as a separate video, but I'm gonna hunt with it the next time I go, and we'll kind of do a little bit of review and just see what I think compared. I've got the regular XL, but I'm gonna like this one better. I think it's got the slanted front end, and it's a little bit wider. The whole platform is wide, so I'm gonna like that too. But anyhow, I'm gonna get to work on these heads and see if we can't get some of this stuff finished up. Well, we're about to wrap Wednesday up, even though I haven't shown y'all anything today, but all I had to do was flesh some hides out, so I went ahead and did 3 hides. I'm going to do some more tomorrow. I actually had one cape that was completely rotten. That cape was wet when I got it out of the bag. And I don't know if it had been submerged in a cooler that had melted ice in it, or if it had gotten wet in the rain and then left out of the cooler or out of a freezer too long. But it was destroyed. I'm talking about I opened the bag up and there were just chunks of hair just laying all over the table. So we'll have to get a replacement cape for that deer for sure. I got to get in touch with that guy and let him know what we're going to have to do. And then I hear my sink dripping over there. Nobody's peeing in the background. It's just the drain. But anyway, I'm going to check the pH in this pickle. I've got 5 or 6 hides I put in there yesterday, and several of them are pack mounts, so it's got the entire cape in there. And typically when that happens, I end up having to add acid just because those capes are so large. Just the area around all of that flesh just makes it so much more volatile in that pH is just up and down, especially with the hair. When you've got a full-length cape, the hair is longer and thicker as you get down the body of that deer, so it has more of a tendency to also float. Now, I've got a plastic pallet on top of that to help hold it down, but you've still got all of that cape, rather than it trying to sink down toward the bottom like a thinner cape would do, or a cape with really short hair like early season deer, they'll just about sink. But these fluffy, real furry capes, especially like I said, when you got the whole body and you got a lot of that really long fur, hair will float and it will make all of that cape sit right up on top. It gets little folds in it, and you've just got all of that area, that pickle, just sitting right there by that cape. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna check the pH. If we have to add acid, we're gonna add acid, and I just see what we're working with. Here, let's see here. Maybe I can get it to where we can kind of see this without dropping my phone in a pickle solution. Just check it right here around the edge of the cape. Yeah, you can see the pH has risen some. This is about a 2. Is about where we're at. It needs to be around that 1.5 mark. So what I'm going to do before I add any acid, first I'm going to take this pallet out and we're going to stir this pickle. And get some of these capes. You see how high these capes are floating. They're almost just layered up on top. We're going to stir that up real good, get everything mixed up, reintroduce some of the bottom layer of pickle back to the capes and back to the surface. And we'll check that pH again. Sometimes you don't have to add acid, and stirring it is all that it takes to get everything. Because I mean, sometimes there is enough acid already in here. It's just right there around the capes. Just kind of gets contaminated with the fluid out of the hide. So, but this, once again, is a reason why you really need to check the pH every single day up until it gets stable. Anytime you introduce new capes, it needs to be checked as often as you can stand to check it, really. Definitely never skip a day. All right, let's see where we're at now. Oh yeah, see there? It's perfect. So we're not going to have to add any acid. But you know, that just that little bit right there, if I had not checked this and stirred it, that pH rising on the surface right there, if I let that sit for 3 or 4 days, every single one of those capes is going to try to slip, at least in spots, especially the parts that are sitting up really high in that water, because once they've contaminated that and that pickle is not the right ratio anymore, it's just going to continue to get worse, and there's no way that it can mix, you know, with anything else. So, you know, if you're ever indecisive about whether or not you're going to be able to deal with checking and stirring and making sure, you know, that everything is just so, I would highly recommend doing a cape at a time and a batch at a time, just so that you can, you know, keep an eye on it. It's a little bit easier to deal with than dealing with a whole bunch at one time. When you've got one cape, it's easier to keep it submerged. It's easier to make sure it's making contact with all that pickle really well. If you decide to use a bulk pickle like this, definitely get something to set on top of those capes and keep them submerged. You do not want them floating, especially in layers. And unless you've got a tub that's, you know, the size of a swimming pool, you're going to have some layers of cape under there. You just want to make sure that all of it stays below the surface of that pickle. Also, this pallet that I'm using, the bottom edge has got just a grid on it. The top edge is the flat part, like where you'd make a shelf out of it. I always put the grid side down. That way the capes can press down under the liquid, but you don't have a lot of flat surface area touching that cape and preventing the pickle from getting to it. So I always put the flat side up, and that way there's just less contact with the capes on the bottom side. And that, my friends, is going to be it for today. We're going to come back down here tomorrow and get 3 more. I've got 3 more capes that's got to be fleshed out and put in the pickle, and I'll be done with every deer from last season pickling. Good morning, guys. It is already Friday morning again. I can't believe it. This is week number 8 in this series. I don't know where in the world the time is going, but it's just rolling. It's funny because you don't realize how much time goes by until you start videoing it and keeping up with it. My gosh, I cannot believe I've been doing this for 8 weeks on the series. It's kind of crazy. But what I'm going to do today, I'm going to shave some capes. I'm probably going to shave, I don't know, 3 to 5 of them, however many I feel. And then I've got 3 capes in here that were salted that I did yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and rehydrate those. We'll show you all right quick how I rehydrate these. Y'all may have seen it before on another video, but it never hurts because a lot of people miss a lot of things. So this is the easiest thing you'll ever do. Like, it gets a little bit complicated on social media, a little confusing because there are so many ways that people say that you can do this. But all I do, this has still got the salt on it. These capes are rolled up. I fleshed them yesterday. And they've still got the salt in the capes. See all that right there? That is why I started leaving the salt in that cape and rolling it up and standing it up to drain rather than using a stretch frame, because the stretch frame as those liquids are coming off of it, it's taking the salt with it. And you end up with spots, especially up around the ear butts where there's still a lot of moisture, and around the face where that salt is drained off and it just doesn't get good penetration. Whereas the way this actually gets fairly stiff. The salt penetrates really well, especially in the head because it's right in the center. And y'all can hear that. I mean, it's not dry, but it is very stiff. The salt has taken the majority of the fluids out of this cape. So all I do is just throw these into a tub, and then I just start filling it up with water. Of course, as I'm doing this, I will unroll them and kind of wash the salt off of them into the water. But this way, you don't have to make up any kind of batch of rehydrating, solution or whatever. Some people say to add salt. Some people like to add other stuff, and it all works. Most of what you're going to read on the internet is probably going to work because everybody's got different methods of doing things. But when you roll the capes up like this, since they don't dry hard, as long as you get them out the following day, where they're still pretty pliable, this does not take but about an hour. And these capes will be soft enough to go ahead. What I'll do after this is put them in another tub and I'll wash them real good. And then we'll drain them and then they'll go into the pickle. You don't want to introduce too much water into your pickle or you will mess up that ratio. When you've got a huge batch like that, it's not quite as big a deal. But you definitely want to make sure, even after they're drained, to put them in that pickle and just wash them around in there really good and agitate all that, because you want to wash all of that water out of the fur and get the pickle into it, so it doesn't have that water sitting right there over the cake if you just were to lay it over there into the pickle. Anyway, y'all, that's all I do to this. It's that simple. Just put it in here, submerge it, move it around every little bit until those sides are soft, and then they'll be ready to go.